adherence to original constitutional meanings, intentions, or understandings. Yet, like living constitutionalism, conservative originalisms were mostly catchphrases, rather than coherent accounts of constitutional interpretation as actually practiced. As constitutional orders do, the Reagan order began to decay, in part through political blunders by George W. Bush. And like the New Deal and Great Society constitutional order, the Reagan order was not replaced immediately. We can take the dozen years between 1968, when Lyndon Johnson's presidency was concluding, and 1980, when Ronald Reagan was elected, as the interregnum. Similarly, perhaps with the years between 2009, when George W. Bush left office, and 2020. The political scientists who have written about American political development focus on Congress and the presidency. Understanding the role of the courts in their framework requires attention to judicial time as well. Congressional and presidential elections occur at regular intervals. Membership on the Supreme Court changes irregularly and largely unpredictably. One effect is that a court whose composition was determined during an earlier regime or during an interregnum can retain significant power even as a new regime comes into place. This book explores the effects of judicial time on changes in our constitutional order. The Trump presidency shows that the conservative constitutional order has reached the kind of inflection point that produces a new constitutional order. As election analyst Sam Wang put it after the 2018 elections, we're at some kind of pivot point in U.S. history. The United States is going someplace new. I wonder where that is. This book examines the possibilities. Either conservative constitutional law will reconstruct itself along new lines, or it will be replaced by a progressive alternative that is as yet unclear. Projecting the conservative Supreme Court decisions from the period of decay into the future shows what we might expect under a Supreme Court dominated by modern Republicans. The characteristic institutions of the Trump constitutional order would likely involve the deconstruction of the administrative state. Its characteristic ideology is economic and social nationalism, and its characteristic policies are tariffs and immigration restrictions. In one scholar's terms, small government inside the United States and big government at the borders. What might the progressive alternative be, and how might it be brought about? Progressives are still grappling with the legacy of their political weakness under the Reagan constitutional order. It is unclear what will emerge, but there is a possibility that the progressive alternative will combine a reinvigorated system of public participation in democratic self-government with commitments to the thicker and more social democratic government that characterized the New Deal and Great Society order at its height. It is, at least, the progressive alternative most clearly discernible today. Part 1. Where we are now. Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal and Lyndon Johnson's Great Society defined the U.S. constitutional system from the mid-1930s through the late 1960s. That system had its own account of what the Constitution stood for and how it should be interpreted, put forward by the Warren Court and its supporters in the legal academy and the popular press. Over time, tensions surfaced within that account, particularly in connection with issues of racial equality and material inequality. The New Deal and Great Society system exhausted itself in the 1960s under the strain of a war in Vietnam, widespread civic disorder, and a refusal to choose between spending on the war and social welfare spending, resulting in serious problems for the national economy. Constitutional systems don't collapse in a moment, though, and this one lumbered on for another decade. Then came Ronald Reagan. He and his supporters articulated an alternative to the New Deal and Great Society regime, one in which, as he put it, government was the problem, not the solution. The Reagan Revolution became the new constitutional system. It produced, among many other things, a well-developed account